This is the Healthy Business Podcast, the show for ambitious business owners who want to grow and scale in a healthy way. I'm Sarah Cook, and I'll be sharing with you tips, inspiration, and proven methods from leading business experts, entrepreneurs, and health and wellness professionals to help you grow your business with more income and having more impact, but in a way that works for you. Because when you have clarity and strategy, you can achieve the results you want. Hello, and welcome to today's episode of the Healthy Business Podcast. I have the wonderful Adele Johnston, and we're going to be talking menopause today. We're going to be talking about menopause and how that can impact your business, what you can do about it. So Adele, thank you so much for joining me.
You are super welcome. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
Oh, I'm excited about this conversation. I think it's one that needs to happen more often, to be honest. And we kind of shy away from it or avoid it or don't even know, what that is, or those symptoms kind of creep up on us. And you're a menopause coach, and we're going to delve into what that is in a minute, but also certified nutritionist, positive psychology coach. And I know you're super passionate about just helping women thrive, just, feel amazing, but not let that impact their business and almost use that as their superpower, aren't you?
Yeah, absolutely. And this is the thing. I think when we think about the word menopause, it seems to be this whole kind of connotation or taboo word that not a lot of people, never mind women, like to open up and talk about. And the whole concept of this for me, I actually, just to share very briefly, because we might go into this, but I actually started to notice changes in my own body at around about my mid-30s, 36, really dominant changes that I thought, this is not normal for me. Yeah, this is just not feeling nice. And by 37, after kind of an 18-month journey, I had a confirmation of early perimenopause. So we'll go through what these different terminologies mean, because I think we can get a bit confused with the words perimenopause, menopause, postmenopause. What the hell does it all mean?
Yeah.
So we can cover that off just so we're clear.
Yeah.
And that for me was the start of kind of my journey around, well, why do we not talk about it more? So I'm super excited to dive into this topic. It is, all about making it mainstream.
Yeah, definitely. And as I said earlier, I think it's just a conversation that we just need to have more often. It is still, sadly, still is that kind of taboo thing, or people kind of, worry about judgment around things. Before we do delve into it, so there's a question that I ask all of my guests on this podcast, and it's what a healthy business means to you. And I'd love your take on this.
Ooh, what an amazing question. I love that. So a healthy business to me personally is one that you feel happy and joy inside. So I think there's this misconception within the business world, and I see this a lot because I don't only work with women on a kind of menopause support basis, but I work with them on enhancing their business performance. So there's a lot of business to business relationships that I undertake and guide on. And what will come up time and time again is this kind of imbalance of I'm showing up and doing the things, but I'm not actually enjoying the flow. So for me, I would say that there's maybe two prongs to this for me personally. It's showing up and enjoying, feeling that happiness, that connection with what you do. It's that purpose and passion that gives you meaning. And the second thing is actually knowing that you've got stability and resilience. That's a huge piece. And resilience, not just within the financials and the wealth flow, but also your health. That's a huge one, because without it, it's a single point of failure for your business performance.
Absolutely. And especially when, a lot of people who listen to this are solo business owners, or they're running businesses with small teams. And that means that it's just, it kind of has that knock-on effect, doesn't it? That if you're not there in your optimal performance and your optimal levels of health, then that is going to have an impact on your wealth as well. So I love that take on it. Thank you for sharing.
You're super welcome. It's a great question.
Yeah. So I think, in some ways, one of the reasons that I do ask this question is that it just acts as a really natural segue into what you do and how you've kind of taken that approach to your business as well. So menopause coach. Let's start with that. What is a menopause coach?
I was asked this recently, actually, because someone had said, well, how does this differ just from a health coach? And I think what's important with all of this is we can put we can put words anywhere in front of coach, can't we? And then, we all kind of think, right, coaching, okay, I'm going to get told what to do and everything's going to get made better. But actually, when you think about what a menopause support coach or a menopause guidance coach is all about, it's about realistically helping that lady to live her life freely and in vibrancy. It's that reconnection. So for each and every lady that I work with, whether that be to enhance their health, well-being and happiness, we might have a lady who comes to me to say, well, my business isn't performing as well as it should because of my menopause, because I'm tired, I'm fatigued, I'm losing and lacking in motivation and confidence, I'm not sleeping, I'm just not showing up as me inside my business anymore, and it's really struggling. So this gets to be what that lady needs it to be. Okay, and there's this element of underpinning of the reclamation formula that I use. Okay, so this is kind of like the foundations. And what we do inside there is we appreciate that nutrition plays a huge role in how our operating system, so us as human beings, how we function, that overall health and well-being resilience. And as a certified and qualified nutritionist, we take a look at that lens. We also then look at the second part to that reclamation formula. It's a 3-part process, the lifestyle pillar, which is huge. So we all know with lifestyle, this is more than just movement and exercise. It's how we show up for ourselves. It's how we show up within our commitments, and appreciating that we can't just stop being a business owner. We can't just stop being a mum. We can't just stop being a wife or a partner or a daughter or however we want to position it. And it's appreciating that each of these have time requirements, energy and resource requirements from us. So I do a huge piece within lifestyle to appreciate and understand what are your commitments in life right now. And there's this amazing practice that I go through called the Stop, Start, Continue. I actually really learnt this through my time within corporate. So I had a 20 plus year corporate career, quite senior in management level. And I used to use this practice a lot inside my teams for my own members of my team, basically my people. And as a team, we would do this regularly to appreciate what have we got spinning? What are the plates that are spinning? And do we need to keep any of those spinning? So the Stop, Start, Continue practice is very powerful within the lifestyle pillar. It gives us clarity. I think when we have that clarity, we can kind of drop that overwhelm label a little bit more. So we go through that. And the third part to the reclamation formula is mind. And this is where I pull in a lot of knowledge and expertise in being a qualified positive psychology coach and also a trauma-informed breathwork facilitator. So we do a lot with mindset, mindfulness, breathwork meditations. We look at the emotional and mental well-being, but also the physical health of the brain. And it's so interesting. And that is almost the whole, that this for me is probably the nutrition, the lifestyle elements are needed. They're foundational. That's why they're in with the other one, and there's 3 of them. But the mind pillar is such a powerful lens for us to focus on that we never stop looking at it. So a menopause coach gets to be what that lady needs to have. Okay, it's kind of one of these things where I can't say to you, it's this, this, and this, but we use the reclamation formula to address what is it that you are needing just now? What are the goals that you are working towards right now? And how are we mapping those goals within your health and yourself, but also within your wealth and your business? So it's really intricate. It's fun. I think this is where we get to bring fun, joy, happiness into this experience. And if I could leave it with one word, it's freedom.
It's so important. And I think it's really interesting. And through all of my work, and it's one of the reasons that I wrote my book, Healthy You, Wealthy Business, is that I feel so passionately about this understanding, this awareness of health. And I think health isn't just what we have traditionally been told as of kind of, eat your 5 fruit and veg a day and go for a bit of exercise. That's a basic, but actually health is so much more than that, and mindset. And I think there's so much more research around this, that it's not it's not woo. It's so important. It's one of the key foundations in how you show up, but how you feel, and actually seeking those paths, making those decisions around what works for you. And that's not going to be the same as somebody else. So I love that you kind of bring all of that into supporting that woman in a way that works for them. And, you know, everyone's unique. Everyone's got different lifestyle setups. Everyone's got different family situations, different businesses. And that's exciting. Like, it'd be so boring if we were all the same. But I think there has to be a kind of a proactive approach to this, because otherwise we're just on this kind of treadmill of what are we doing this for? And I think, you know, that's why I kind of wanted to bring you in today for the episode, because I think it's such an interesting area that we can talk about health, but you know, even I recognize that my body's changing and has changed, and you know, pre being a mum and then being a mum and all those hormonal changes, and then as I'm kind of nearing the 40s, I'm definitely noticing things, and I'm going on my own journey with kind of nutrition and recognizing that, you know, huge things are having an impact that never used to have an impact.
Yes.
I think it is that awareness, but it's taking that proactive approach to being aware, I think, as well, and kind of just really checking in with yourself. So one of the things that I was going to ask you, actually, based on your kind of reclamation formula, because I think, especially as business owners, we're so busy. And even before we came online, we were kind of saying, you know, when you're delivering something, there's always the stuff beforehand that people don't see. Like, we are, as business owners, wearing lots of hats, or not just as business owners, the whole of our life is kind of wearing different hats: mums, wives, parents, daughters, whatever that looks like. How do we even stop to think what else is going on? Like, you know, I think so many people just assume, well, of course I'm tired, I'm busy, like I've just got all this stuff going on, I'm tired, but that's natural, that's normal, that's life.
Yes.
So I'd love your kind of take on maybe even just how people can just sort of stop and check in with themselves, or create that awareness to see if things are changing, rather than just that assumption that it's just tiredness.
Yeah, it's such a common one, actually. I hear this a lot with my private clients, but also with ladies that just reach out for help, you know, to say, I can no longer put up with this level of exhaustion or fatigue. You know, it's really impacting on who I am. I don't recognize myself anymore in how I look or how I feel and how I'm showing up for myself. And probably one of the main things that I am a huge, massive advocate of, and it's actually one of the non-negotiables to coming inside and working with my team and myself, is that self-care is daily. So we actually prescribe. It's the only time that I will ever prescribe anything, because everything else has to be done through invitations. So I will never dictate to any of my ladies or my private ladies on what needs to happen in their life, but I will invite them to consider certain practices or certain guidances around how we can enhance that situation at that time. The only one non-negotiable then, well, I've got two, but the only one within this space is self-care is daily. So that might just be a self-care's micro moment. And what that might look like for you is when you recognize that you're feeling a little bit fractured or disjointed from yourself, your thoughts are maybe creeping into a lack mindset, you're starting to become a little bit overwhelmed, and you just feel like you're taking very, very shallow breaths. What we need to be able to do is come back into that mindful moment. And if we talk about mindfulness, in reality, what it is being present in the here and now. It's not about sitting in the middle of a floor with your legs crossed and, you know, deep and humming meditations. It's about being able to be present in that moment. And a micro self-care's moment might just be placing a hand on your heart and a hand on your belly, so that you're connecting with your heart space and then your sacral energy space in your tummy area, and just feeling the breath. And if you notice that the breath is very short and shallow, your body is telling you it is in that reactive fight, flight, or freeze. Okay, so we are no longer in that rest and digest, which we need to be in. Therefore, I invite you to take a very nice, long, deep breath in through the nose, and really lift the shoulders as you go. So you open out the chest, really go until you fill the lungs and you can't get any more air in there. And then just a slight hold. We're not top holding the breath, but a slight hold to just hold it in and then release. And as you release, feel the air, release it with intention. Okay, you're not trying to blow gently on a feather. You're really going proper release that air. And just see how you feel. See the shift in your energy just from that one micro moment of self-cares. All right. The other extreme to this would be that you take dedicated self-cares. Okay. For those of you that are business owners listening to this, it can be very, very challenging to allow yourself to just have downtime. Okay, we kind of have this whole, but I've got this going and I need to get that off the ground and I meant to have sent that yesterday. It can wait. You can gift yourself 10 moments. Okay, 10 moments are better than no moments. And just afford yourself even a 10-minute of fresh air. Okay, you can go for a quick walk around the block. There are so many different practices. One is actually, I've just recorded a podcast on this. So if any of you want to listen to it, it's the last episode called the Menopause Coach podcast. You can jump on there and it gives you a 5 senses awakening meditation practice. So you don't need to lie down for this. You don't even need to plan. You don't need to have any resources. You just need you and you need 10 moments. You're going to go for a walk. And within that walk, you're going to go through the 5 senses practice. Okay, so this is a beautiful one. It's really easy to do. So you're going to start with, what are 5 things that I can see? And you can either say 5 things I can see that I can touch, or 5 things I can see that I cannot touch. Okay, so you might say the clouds, the top of the lamppost, the top of a tree. You're just bringing yourself back into your moment, your presentness, your mindful here and now. So 5 things I can see. What are 4 things that I can hear? It's amazing what you can hear when you really connect in with, well, what can I hear right now? You might hear a passing of a car, the dropping of the rain. So allow yourself to connect with 4 things I can hear. So we're working our way down our senses. Then it's, what are 3 things that I can smell? What can I smell? And you might need to pay attention to this one. And then, what could I touch? What are 2 things that if I reach out right now that I could touch? It might be something on yourself. It might be something as you pass by. If you're in the forest, you could touch the leaf or the branch, or the ground. Doesn't matter. Just 2 things I can touch. And the final thing is, what is 1 thing that I can taste in this moment? And you might think, well, that's silly. I'm not eating anything, so how can I taste anything? But please do, trust me, you will ignite that sense and that sensory response. You will taste something from that moment of clarity of the 5 senses. So it's a really nice practice. I explain it in detail on the podcast if any of you want to go and listen to it and practice it. But that's what I would leave you with to answer that question in a very kind of short paragraph. Mindful self-care's moments will change your life, and they're free.
Thank you so much for sharing those 2, because I think and if you're listening to this, feel free to kind of, press pause, rewind and listen again, because I think it's so valuable. And I think one of the biggest misconceptions around self-care is that it has to be long and you have to, it's a spa day or it's a bubble bath. And yes, all of those things are brilliant, but it's the everyday stuff, isn't it? It's the being present. It's the actual, just those little micro moments can be just as beneficial, if not more beneficial, because you're doing them on a regular basis. So they become more habitual as well. So I'd really invite you to test those out. So thank you, Adele, for sharing those. It's amazing. The impact of that, though, on people running their business, that if they're feeling this tiredness, they're feeling this kind of just not themselves, lacking that joy, all of those things that I hear quite often from my clients, of just this overwhelm. And actually, if we stop to think about us, that's normally where the answer is. It's not normally the overwhelm from the stuff we have to do, because that feels a lot easier when we're in flow, when we're feeling that joy. The overwhelm comes from actually ourselves, our health, our mindset. What are the kind of big questions that people come to you from a business perspective? So if they are or the impact that you can create, I guess, is where I'm going to, that if they do look after themselves, they find that vibrancy, they find that joy again. What,
Mm-hmm.
what what does happen for people? I want to share the impact on this because, share some of the results that you create, because I think there's so many myths around, oh yeah, I know I need to look after myself. I get that I need to add self-care in, but I'll do that when I've got time, or I'll do it at the end of the day once I've done all my stuff on my business.
Yeah.
I'm really passionate about getting people to go, well, let's flip this.
Yeah.
Focus on you first, because then that's going to have a most positive impact on you as well, and then the results that you can create in your business.
Absolutely. So there's probably a few things come to mind with this immediately. Just before I answer that, I've just got a comment on the overwhelm piece. So what we find with overwhelm is that we actually create it. Overwhelm isn't something that just happens to us. Overwhelm comes from a place of not understanding your true values and having clear boundaries in place. Because once we understand our values, now let me just share what one of my values is. I've got two very big ones, got a lot more, but two very big ones. The first one is health. So without my health, I can't do any of it. So it's about really showing up for me and my body. And in turn, that ripple effect is then I'm showing up for my family, I'm showing up for my clients, my business, my future. And the second big one for me is life currency, time. Okay, this is the one thing that we can absolutely give away unwillingly to people, to situations, to thoughts. We can generate this whole day of worry and fear and overwhelm from one thought process that hasn't even become a reality yet. And yet we're making it a reality in our mind. So we have the power within our mind space, and this is where positive psychology really lends itself, to change that thought process. So an invitation around, if you are experiencing overwhelm on the regular, you are not connected with who you are, your values, your purpose, and you have no clear boundaries in place. Because when we have those boundaries in place, we recognize when people, situations, life starts to push those boundaries a little bit, and we can go, wait a minute, this isn't within my value and boundary alignment. I am out of alignment, therefore my flow has been compromised. That is why I feel overwhelmed. So just wanted to kind of mention on that one there, because I think it's important. Any work that I do, we do a lot of work around values and boundaries to begin with, and that helps us to appreciate within the lifestyle pillar, not just the stop, start, continue of what are we currently spinning right now, and what are your values and boundaries as you go through this journey. So when we think about the impacts that can then have on business and performance, your business will only be as resilient and perform as well as you are well and resilient. Okay, it's this whole cliche of if you are in burnout mode and you are constantly showing up in a kind of non-authentic style, you are showing up to calls that you do not feel joy for, you are running programs or product lines that you just do not feel aligned with in your purpose, there will only be so long that you can sustain running at that level before you absolutely crash and burn. And I've seen it happen. I have just onboarded a brand new client that's happened to. And what we've had to do is be very caring and compassionate of understanding that sometimes we have to be okay with just stopping. Yeah, sometimes we have to be okay with just stopping. And it's normally when we've neglected us. We've neglected our values. We've put everything and everyone else ahead of us. And it's almost this, if the analogy of our empty barrel. And when our barrel becomes empty, there's literally nothing in there. Okay, we have no joy. We don't show up in a happy self. We don't have high vibrational energies. We kind of are showing up with this false pretense of I'm running a very healthy, wealthy, successful business. But in reality, are you really? That's hard to hear. And I know for some people listening to this, it might be a trigger point. It might sting, but allow it to. Allow it to sting, allow it to trigger, because if it is, deep down you're not showing up in your true authentic nature and style. And that's what the world needs from you. We don't need you showing up in a clone version of someone else. We need you showing up in your true authentic self.
I love that. And there's the word that keeps coming through into my head whilst you're talking is should. Like the number of people that I see that are doing things, are putting out offers or working with people because they
Yeah.
should. And it's like, no, let's go back to you. Like, what are your, as you, it's everything you said, what are your values? What's the stuff that brings you joy? What's the thing that, that lights you up, not just the things, but the people as well. Like you don't have to work with anyone. You choose who you work with. And
Right.
that energy you put out there attracts those right people to you. And I think that's also really key is that, you actually can't serve everybody because that it goes back to that time boundary, I think, again. But also those values, those inner core values that are inherent to us. They are there. We can't change those. And I think it's really key that people do spend that time going into it. And as you say, it might well sting, it might well feel uncomfortable listening to this.
Mhm.
And if it does, I'm actually really excited for you because having that trigger is the first bit of awareness into going, something's not quite in alignment.
Mhm.
And then start asking those questions of going, well, what do I want? What is it
Mhm.
that I'm kind of working towards?
Yeah. I've
Um,
just done it recently, actually. So I do this quite a lot. And I think I'm a manifesting generator.
Same.
Human design. So if anyone on here does their human design, you'll appreciate now. You'll be like, okay, yes, I appreciate why. So the manifesting generators, so Sarah and I both the same. We basically will spin all the plates in one go. We always have the ideas. We've constantly got this kind of risk foot forward and that, well, let's just see what happens if we try it. What's the worst that can happen if we try it? I'm not going to kill anyone. So as long as I'm not ending a life, everything else is recoverable. That's always my outlook on this. Yeah, nobody's going to die. It's fine. We might lose some money, but money's just energy. And energy in this universe is abundance. So if we get to, make someone else happy with an investment that we make that doesn't work for us, we've still given energy into the universe. So this gets to be fun. And I think people forget to have fun in their business as they grow. We come up against, different resistances as we go through this. I call them speed bumps in the road, but never roadblocks, because we get to always have a solution to either go over or around them. They'll never stop us. We might have to sidestep, and that's okay. So I think there becomes a point where I refer to it as taking the helicopter CEO view. Okay, so as CEOs of our companies and as we grow our businesses and we start to bring on team and we hit new goals, we make mistakes. Yeah, we never get there with a clean slate. We've always made mistakes and those are our learnings. That's how we do this. I think then we get to those points where we have to stop and say, how have I handled this last quarter? What have I learned from those steps that I've taken that didn't really come to fruition? Why did that happen? Was it me? Was it something I didn't do along the way that I should have? So we get to take these helicopter CEO rides, pull ourselves up out of the business and look at, was that decision made from a friendship and heart space? Or was that decision made from an absolute badass businesswoman needle mover? And sometimes they're not always going to be nice conversations. Sometimes we're going to have to make big decisions that we think, oh, this is really going to hurt the other person. Yeah, and that this is where we get to be, again, connected with our values and our boundaries and understand what we need from our business. Because if we're not showing up in full authenticity to who we are and who we want our business to be, our brand values, all of that good shiny stuff, then we're not truly living that value, that vision, and that purpose. And that's where it gets dangerous for you and your business, because you're no longer running your business. You're allowing all of the outward energies to do that for you.
Oh, such good advice. And oh, yeah, I mean, there's lots of things that I can kind of pull out of that, but I think giving yourself permission to have, and what I call it a CEO day of just, and actually I really invite all of my audience to do this on a quarterly as a minimum,
Mm.
of having that sense check in of going, have you hit your financial goals? If so, great. But what happened? Has that had an impact on your lifestyle? Have you hit your lifestyle goals? If yes, great. But what, looking at it from all different angles and
Yeah.
then making those CEO decisions for your business.
Mm-hmm.
And when we have that check-in, that keeps us on the path that feels aligned, rather than going back to that should, or going back to the, focusing on the things that you don't necessarily want to do. And I've gone through this process pretty much for the whole of this year, where I feel like I've kind of, optimized a lot of things. I've stopped doing a lot of things. I've changed my team around. And it's all in that, it's not kind of, stopping from, wiping the slate completely clean and starting from scratch. That's not what I'm necessarily kind of suggesting. But I think it's making those conscious decisions and doing them and knowing why you're doing them. And living your life, but also running your business in the ways that you want to, because you set your business up for a reason, right?
Absolutely.
To be super busy and run all these things.
And we have to be intentional with these decisions, because what can happen is when we're a solo entrepreneur and we're in this without a business partner, which a lot of people will be, a lot of women listening to this will be, like you and I, where we've set this up and this is just us. Yeah, we have a team, but those team are not invested in the business the way we are. So we are that needle mover. We're driving this vision forward. And what can happen over time is we might just get held within a space that we feel safe, because we're maybe inside a container. We're maybe with a coach. And once we start to then take those CEO days or those helicopter CEO micro moments to say, is this still working towards my vision? Is this still serving? Am I gaining? And if we start to say, well, actually, no, no longer, it's served its purpose. That's where we need to then be able to make those decisions to say, okay, well, maybe I'm now moving on from this support, or maybe now I know that I need to up level and I need something or someone different to support with that up level. That's where the big decisions come from that will move, rather than thinking, I'm safe here. That's you thinking from the heart space. And that's okay. We get to do that. We get to make those decisions. Yeah. It feels good. It feels safe. It feels warm. It feels comforting. We feel that connection with others. But we also have to be very honest with ourselves around, is it purely because I'm liking the safety of this and I'm making that investment for safety? Am I okay with that consciously? Or is it time that I move on from there and I up level again? And it is uncomfortable when we up level.
Yeah, and it is, isn't it? Every time those little mindset monkeys come out and they question things, because our brain wants to keep us safe. That's the way our brain works. And I think, and just bringing this background into kind of menopause, I think that safety net of almost not knowing is what keeps people in that space of not asking questions. And actually, that's not a safe space, because it's impacting you and your life, your happiness and your business, as we've just been talking a lot at length about. I want to go into these different terms because I think it's so important that we differentiate those different phases, but also, again, that kind of impact, that awareness, those questions that we should be asking. So I'd love to kind of explore that journey, I suppose, that all of us women are going to go through at some point, maybe already on that journey or kind of coming to the end of it, wherever you are. But knowing that there is stuff we can do to support us, I think, is really key. So if we, I guess, kind of start right at the beginning of that kind of perimenopause, or maybe there's even pre-perimenopause, I don't know.
So there's premenopause, which is the kind of first stage of our female fertility journey. And we're not even really aware at that point what menopause is. We've maybe witnessed, our great granny at that point, because we're so young, going through all these flushies and having fans and sweating. But we're teenagers at that point, really, and into our 20s, we're not even really aware of it. And then when we start to enter into our kind of late 30s, early 40s to mid 40s for some women, again, it's all, we don't just hit a certain age and all of a sudden that's you perimenopausal. This is all individually in your genetics, and your body's own hormonal profiles will kind of decide at that point when they start to take a decline. So over perimenopause, it can be around about 10, 12, 15 years for some women. We're having a reduction within our core sex hormones as women. So the three core ones there are estrogen, which is plural. So we have more than one estrogen. We have estrogens, but we refer to it as estrogen. And the main kind of queen bee within the estrogen that we lose is called estradiol, or estradiol, depending on how you want to pronounce it. It's like potato. So estradiol or estradiol is that queen bee within our estrogen that as that declines, it affects our entire body. So we have estrogen receptors everywhere, absolutely everywhere, on and in our body, in our brain, our eyes, are everywhere, legitimately. Amazing. So as this starts to decline over those 10, 12 to 15 years, what can happen is we can get symptoms. And those symptoms can be the ones that we know most about, like the vasomotor, which is flushing or hot sweats, night sweats. But we can also experience things like the less common, which are heart palpitations, hair falling out. We might experience things like itchy skin, reactions to certain foods or alcoholic beverages, caffeine. We might find that sleep disturbances start to become quite regular. We might even find that we can no longer really hold our bladder well. So we have leakages. Yeah, we might end up with IBS type symptoms when we've never had those before. So we have this whole array of different things that start happening to our body that we think, oh, I must just be stressed. I think I'm just too busy. I'm not sleeping because actually I had a late coffee that day. Maybe I'm just feeling a little bit under the weather, under pressure. So we start to go, oh, maybe it's just. For quite a number of years, we'll maybe show up to the GP to say, I've been feeling quite low. I'm not depressed. I don't feel anxious. I just feel a bit meh, a bit low, a bit nothingness. We maybe, come away with some antidepressants because the GP thinks that's what we need. We might find that we end up with all these different hospital appointments for ECGs because our heart palpitations just will not settle down. We go through all these checks, potentially being told that this was my own journey as well, potentially being told that we might have cervical cancer because of some of the symptoms we're experiencing. So we go through the blood works, the biopsies, the internals, you name it, we have it. Everything comes back really fit and healthy and we're like, I celebrate that, I'm grateful, but it still doesn't explain the symptoms and the severity. So there's a lot changes during that perimenopause and we can start to lose who we are. Weight gain is another big one. 97% of women that reach out to me just now, it's all predominantly because of weight gain in menopause. Adele, all the things I've done before when I've been able to just really lose weight quickly and easily, it's not working now. I'm holding tummy fat when I've never had tummy fat before. Why is that happening? And it's predominantly because of this estradiol decline. We've then got our next hormone, progesterone. So progesterone maintains a very healthy uterine lining, our womb, and that's ultimately what helps the embryo to grow when we become pregnant. So progesterone has a really core role in our fertility journey and for helping us grow a baby, but it also has a really dominant role in regulating our sleep. Okay, it's that sense of calm. So again, when we start to have a decline in progesterone during our perimenopause stage, our sleep can be very disturbed. Our calmness can start to feel a bit fractured. Yeah, all of a sudden we're a bit more irritable, a bit more moody, sharp, upset, emotional. And then third hormone that we actually produce 3 times as much testosterone than estrogen before menopause. This one is, it's great for our libido and our sex drive. So if you think, wow, I'm not even interested in that right now, never have been for years, then again, it's not that it's not normal, but this is an indication that that hormone may have taken quite a big drop for you if you do not ever feel very, engaged within sexual pleasures, whether that be personally or with a partner. The other point with testosterone is that it's actually a very, very big motivator and confidence boosting hormone. So I call that your kind of inner badass hormone. That one where you're like, I am saying yes to that opportunity, even though I do not have a Scooby how I'm going to make this happen. We're in there. We're like, yes, I'll do that speaking gig. Yes, I'll do that presentation. And then we kind of go, oh, how am I going to do that? Well, that's the hormone. Testosterone is that hormone that really makes us quite bolshy. So once we start to have the decline in those, all 3 of those hormones dropping, we can become a shell of who we were before. So this is perimenopause, but it's not all kind of doom and gloom on that sense. We actually get to really support our body during this phase. And that's where the reclamation formula provides the foundations for all of that. Yeah, we haven't even talked about hormone replacement therapy or menopause hormone therapy, as we now call it, or just topping up hormones. Yeah, we haven't talked about that yet, but that is another strategy that can help in perimenopause. You do not need to wait until you reach the next stage, which is menopause. And menopause is 12 consecutive months with no menstrual bleed. So you've not bled for a full year, plus 1 day. And that 1 day is your menopause day. That is it. The next day is your postmenopausal years forevermore. So there's the 4 steps: pre-menopause, perimenopause, menopause being 1 day, and then postmenopause, where most of the women that we know will spend a third of their lifespan in postmenopausal years. And that's where you're not bleeding anymore. Your hormones have taken a new, very low, steady state now. We're not going through the drops and the spikes. So we're at a new low, steady state. But what I must highlight here is that with the declining hormones, estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone, estrogen or estradiol predominantly, it can bring with it some hormone deficiency health risks. So as that hormone has dropped, we can start to experience a higher risk, and I'm trying to be very mindful that this doesn't sound scary, but a higher risk of impacts to our cognitive and brain well-being. Yeah, the kind of, we want to avoid any degeneration of the cognition and brain health, but also our heart health. And the unfortunate statistics around this is that women will become 50% higher risk of cardiovascular disease postmenopausal than they are in pre and peri.
Wow, that's a huge stat, isn't it?
Right? And this is, cardiovascular disease and heart related disease is actually a higher impact risk and killer to females in postmenopausal years than breast cancer.
That's amazing.
Stats are vastly different.
That's just given me some little chills. It's just that's such a huge stat that I definitely wasn't aware of. I think it just reinforces that for me. We just need to take stock of where and what is going on in our bodies and be proactive with that, because I think, we hear this phrase of going through the menopause, but actually it's the perimenopause that's the big thing, isn't it? We're going through the perimenopause because
going through perimenopause.
Menopause is just the 1 day.
1 day. This is it. I mean, it's kind of known as menopause, but actually it's perimenopause where we get to take control of our body's health and well-being. And the way that I explain this to my ladies, my private clients, when we're working together, because it is an education piece as we go through this, I empower them to be able to understand what's happening and to have those medical conversations with their medical teams so they can ask for what they want. That's the beauty in this. And it's kind of one of these ones where I'm a bit firm with this when I say this, but it's because it's so true. Again, another trigger warning moment. But if you do not understand how your body works, you are neglecting your health and your well-being. Okay, it's not enough to ostrich and put your head in the sand and think, well, I'll be through it soon, it's okay. Because we never come through the menopause. We experience our menopause as in terms of that 1 day where we've gone 12 months without a bleed. But it's actually the run up to within that perimenopause into postmenopausal stage that we get to be very caring for our bodies, because what is happening through the reduction of those hormones is within all those symptoms and ailments we experience, 25% of women will experience so severe symptoms that it impacts their life drastically, stopping them working, stopping them showing up within relationships, and there's a lot can happen. What we get to do is take charge of that, and we get to put the foundations in place so that we can actually listen to our body's SOS that it's sending out to us and respond with compassion, with love, and with kindness. Whether that is with topping up hormones or whether that is without topping up hormones, there are routes to both ways, that we get to own, take charge. And it's up to each of you listening to this now. It's up to Sarah, it's up to me to understand how our bodies need us to show up for them. It's nobody else's job to do that. It's your body. So, stingy trigger warning there.
Yeah, take that as an opportunity, as an invitation, however you want to take it. As almost as that reason to go today, or just take that time to just think about the changes that have gone through your body recently, or over the kind of a recent period of time, whatever that looks like. And it's interesting how those little things start adding up, and when you put them all together, and just hearing almost that little checklist of things that you were going through would definitely kind of triggers for me of going, this isn't normal, I need to go and explore further what actually is going on for me.
Yes.
So
Yes.
yeah, I think it's a huge one, isn't it? And I think the other bit around that you mentioned is having a support network around you, whatever that looks like, whether that is medical teams, whether it is someone like you who's kind of, that coach that's going to educate but also support you making those empowered decisions, or whether it's, friends, you're having those conversations as well, because we're all going to go through things at different times. But
yes,
sadly, it still is that taboo subject of, we don't necessarily want to go and talk about those things over dinner, or, on a girls' catch up, or whatever that looks like. But actually, they're really important.
Absolutely. They really are. And I think this is where we get to show up and be proud of our bodies. We get to help our friends. I mean, I'm 39 now. I've been experiencing these changes. And for me now, I'm coming into this stage of life where a lot of my friends are starting to experience changes. I've got friends who are a few years older than me. And, we met up for a walk just recently, me and one of my other friends. And it was absolutely apparent to me that she is suffering, and yet her GP will constantly say, you're far too young, it's not menopause, you're too young for it to be that. And I think what I would say to any lady listening to this thinking, yes, that's me, I keep getting fobbed off, I keep getting told no. This is where, again, it comes back to that point of understanding what's different for you and your body. Okay, you are not a medical statistic, you are not a benchmark, we are unique. And it's understanding what's different for you. And if you are 45 or over, then we can actually confirm, I don't use the word diagnose because it's not an illness or a disease, but we can confirm your perimenopause by symptoms alone. And I can actually give you this, Sarah. I've got a free downloadable link to a perimenopause assessment where you can record your symptoms. And for free, you can return it to me and my team, and we will assess it for you and come back to you with some guidance. So this gets to be empowering. Okay, you get to then take that assessment back to your GP, and you get to say, I've spoken with a menopause team. This is what I now know. Yeah. So sometimes it's just that step over the kind of medical team threshold to say, look, I'm not willing to accept that you're telling me I'm too young. Okay, there are girls as young as teenagers that experience what's known as POI, premature ovarian insufficiency, or early menopause. And, I know two. I know one who was 12 and one who was 13.
Wow.
So this is not an age-related, we need to be in our 50s or 60s type of stage of life. It's actually when perimenopause starts, that's our time of life as females to say, my body needs me right now, and I need to listen to her. What's she asking me for? What do we need to do? And sometimes that is those mindful moments. Sometimes it is just being very, very clear on, does this food make me feel energized, or does it make me feel drained and depleted? Because again, our metabolism changes in menopause. Okay, how we metabolize food changes a little bit. Not a lot, but a little. And some ladies, not all, some ladies can find that their body struggles a little bit with what's called insulin resistance. So this is where when we're eating certain foods, the sugars in those foods, we normally will absolutely process those, metabolize them, use them as energy. The menopausal body can change the hormonal profile of that, and actually our body's ability to process that insulin as efficiently isn't as efficient or effective. So we can find that we do get a lot of maybe lulls in the day, fatigue that overpowers us. We might find that we become irritable. We might even find that we retain belly fat quite rapidly when we haven't really changed much. Yeah. So it's just being aware of what is changing for your body and asking those who understand to help you.
I feel like we could talk on this all day. It's something that I'm fascinated with anyway. And I think hopefully you listening to it have just taken so much. And I feel like we have only just scratched the surface. And I know that. Where can people find you if they're wanting to reach out, or they've just listened to this and gone, oh my goodness, I could literally feel like you're talking about me here?
Yeah. So probably the best thing to do is to connect over on, if you like podcasts, then I have a podcast that I run called The Menopause Coach. And we cover more of all this stuff in here and there. We've guest experts that come in and we dive into testosterone, or we dive into how to basically unlive a sedentary lifestyle in an easy way. So we do a lot of really easy solution-based podcast episodes, and they're educational. But I'm very active across social media. So probably the easiest thing to do is to connect with me on Instagram. If you are live and kicking on Instagram, just at Adele.Johnston. Or if you are not an Instagram user, jump onto Google and just type in Adele, the Menopause Coach, and my website, the podcast, all the platforms that I'm on will come up. You can connect with me on whichever one you're active with.
Amazing. And I think my kind of key biggest takeout from our conversation today is just having that awareness and then being proactive with taking that first step, and having that real kind of curiosity, asking yourself those questions.
Yeah. Own it. Absolutely own it.
Yeah, exactly. Because if you don't, that is going to have a huge impact on you as a person and on your business as well. And I think that's the key thing here, is that, it's, yes, of course, we as people and we as women are so important in how we live our lives. But you listening to this are business owners as well. And I want you to thrive in business too. And that combination of you and your business is where the magic happens. So please do take this as your invitation to take action just by listening to this podcast. Adele, it's been amazing chatting to you. Thank you so much for joining me on today's episode. I've really enjoyed it. I've learned a little bit as well, which has been amazing, as I'm pretty sure I'm going through my journey and asking those questions and working with people as well. So thank you for coming in and sharing your wisdom. I've really appreciated it. And I would love some feedback as well from you listeners. So let's make you accountable. I would love for you either to, off the back of this, drop me a message at Sarah Cook Coaching on Instagram, or drop Adele a message on Instagram. So Adele.Johnston. Please do take action off the back of this. Drop us a message and let us know what you're going to do off the back of this. I think it'd be so interesting to see who are those action takers, and also, just to get your feedback as to whether this has spoken to you, what further information you feel like you need to help you support yourself, but also your business in this area. Adele, once again, thank you for joining me. This is the Healthy Business Podcast. I am Sarah Cook, and I will see you on the next episode. Thank you so much for listening. Thanks for listening to the Healthy Business Podcast. To get your free checklist with 1-minute hacks to accelerate your business and find out more about our community, head to my website, sarahcookmarketing.com/healthy business.